Today's guest is Lorraine K. Lee, keynote speaker, LinkedIn top voice, and best-selling author of Unforgettable Presence. Get seen, gain influence, and catapult your career. Lorraine has spent over a decade helping professionals and leaders elevate their presence, influence, and impact, both online and off. Her frameworks have been adopted by global companies like Zoom, Amazon, Cisco, and McKinsey. And her insights have been featured in CNBC, Bloomberg, Fast Company, and many others. As a founding editor at LinkedIn and Prezi, Lorraine saw firsthand how visibility and influence shapes careers. Now she's helping others show up confidently, communicate powerfully, and build their own unforgettable presence. In this conversation, we talk about what inspired her to write her book, How Professionals Can Strengthen Their Career Brand, and the small intentional shifts that make a big impact on how others perceive and remember you. Lorraine, welcome to the Her Workplace Unfiltered podcast.
Thank you for inviting me. So excited to be here with you.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk with you further about gaining influence in the workplace. But I first want to start off with your career journey. Tell me more about what that journey looked like. I know you worked with some of the top companies.
Yeah.
So what inspired you to embark on this impactful career and then now take this new journey as being an author and speaker?
Well, where I'm at now is not something I envisioned for myself at all. I studied journalism at university at Northwestern and knew pretty early on that I wanted to do something that was journalism adjacent, but not traditional media. And when I entered the workforce, tech was booming. And so I was fortunate enough to join the workforce at a number of different tech companies. So you mentioned LinkedIn, you mentioned Prezi, and I got to be the founding editor or one of the founding editors at those companies.
Wow.
And both were amazing experiences. So at LinkedIn, I was there for about 6 years, Prezi for about 3 years. And it was while I was at Prezi that I took it upon myself to get better at public speaking, not with the goal, again, of making it my career, but because I knew how important a skill it was to be seen as a leader, to advance in an organization. And so through the public speaking, that led to things like becoming a LinkedIn learning instructor, starting to get interviewed on podcasts. And then I got impacted by the tech layoffs at the end of 2022.
Oh, wow.
So was at a crossroads. Do I maybe start my own business? Do I apply for jobs? And the job market was just horrible then. And I had seen enough momentum with the speaking, with the course creating, where I thought, let me give myself a year and see what happens if I start my own business. So founded Rise Learning Solutions in 2023. And yeah, we're almost 3 years into the business now.
That's incredible. Such a cool story of how you never really expected yourself to be on this journey and it all kind of fell into place.
Yeah.
I want to just ask you a question about the experience of going through a layoff, because I know a lot of people who are listening to this episode may be impacted by layoffs. There's crazy things going on with the job market right now.
Yeah.
So what was that experience like and how did you flip the script?
Being in tech at the period that I was in tech, I was very fortunate. A lot of us never experienced a layoff, right? I was in tech for about 10 years. I had seen friends, family who had gotten laid off from different industries. And so at the time that layoffs were starting to increase in tech, perhaps a bit naively, I just thought, it hasn't impacted me. I don't know if it's going to impact me. But then you start seeing little signs within an organization. You're like, is this maybe coming? And then I woke up one morning and I see the calendar invite titled Your Conversation. And there's a video from the CEO and he's talking about layoffs. Now, soon after I had joined Prezi, we had to do layoffs as well. So I thought that message was giving managers a heads up, oh, we're preparing for another layoff, a meeting, this is the meeting to prepare for it. But then I saw it was only my manager and someone from HR on the call. And I was like, oh, this is my layoff.
Oh my gosh.
So you go through a little bit of shock, and then I was still in bed. So I'm just like, oh my gosh, I got to get my files. I just have to figure out what's going on, talk to people.
Yeah.
So it was quite overwhelming, quite emotional.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I had separated myself a bit where my identity was not fully, entirely connected to the company.
Which is so important.
Yeah, that was a mistake I made at LinkedIn, where after I left LinkedIn, I was like, who am I? Like, what am I going to be posting about on LinkedIn if not working at LinkedIn?
Right.
So was more prepared in that sense. But yeah, it's still a very traumatic experience.
What were those little signs that you noticed that kind of gave you that insight of, oh, okay, layoffs are coming, or I may be impacted by this?
Well, one was just reading the headlines and seeing all these really big tech companies laying people off. And I thought, okay, if they're doing it, there's no way that our smaller company is not going to go through it as well.
Yeah.
I do remember there was a period of time where the HR leader was going around and meeting with all the teams and asking what everyone did. And I remember asking, like, well, what is this for?
Right.
And she said, oh, I just wanted to learn more about what each team does. She had been at the company, I think, at least 1 to 2 years at this point. I'm like, that sounds a bit strange, but okay, I'll just, talk about my team and hype everyone up and just really show our value. But, it ended up happening anyway.
Yeah. It's so challenging.
It is,
especially the environment that we're in now.
Yeah.
Of a lot of people experiencing this.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about the next phase that you took after going through a layoff and really kind of redefining, okay, what are my values? What's my voice? What's my next step? And then that led you to write Unforgettable Presence.
Yes.
So I want to talk about kind of what inspired you to write a book.
So similarly to, doing this profession now, it wasn't something that was on my radar.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening after I launched my first LinkedIn learning course, which I think was actually quite soon before the layoff happened, is a former coworker reached out. He said, congratulations. And then he goes, when's the book coming out? And then I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. Like, I've never thought about that for myself. So just so thankful. And I think really shows the value of having mentors and peers and people just on your side who can see something in you before you even see it. And then I met with someone who I had never met in person before, but we became friends through LinkedIn. And then she asks me a few weeks later, have you ever thought about writing a book? And so at that point, I was very excited about it. And I thought, after starting my business, no clients yet, I have all this free time, I'm going to self-publish and start writing this. But pretty early on, I realized, okay, this is a lot of work. I don't fully have my idea formulated yet. I want to wait for a traditional publisher, and I want to just give myself a little bit of time. So about a year into my business, Wiley reached out to me on LinkedIn.
Wow.
Yeah. And then
That's
a few
incredible.
other, so exciting. A few other publishers also reached out soon after. And I just took it as a sign from the universe. And then this time when I started writing my proposal, just the ideas flowed. I knew exactly how I wanted to position it. And so I think maybe I just needed that year, a little bit more stability and just growing my confidence to feel ready for that.
I love that. And I also love what you said about having mentors and sponsors and people that you can surround yourself with who do give you those insights and little nuggets. I had a similar situation happen to me where I had a mentor come up to me and say, have you ever thought about starting your own business? And it was a spark of, oh, I never thought about that, or I never considered that career path. So you're absolutely right that having those people who can create those little sparks of opportunity.
Exactly. Yeah. How long ago was that?
That was 3 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So
you let it ruminate, and then you started this amazing company.
Yes.
So I love it.
What does presence mean to you?
The way I describe presence or define presence is both how and where you are seen. A lot of us, when we think of presence, we think a lot about the how. And in particular, a lot of us think about executive presence, and we have certain assumptions in our head that we have to be at a certain level, we have to look a certain way, we have to act a certain way. And this new definition of presence really stemmed from both my time at LinkedIn and my time at Prezi, where at LinkedIn, I was someone who worked really hard. I worked on high visibility projects. I was well liked by my peers, came to work with a positive attitude. All these things you would think would lead to a promotion or advancement. But once I reached that mid level, it was very hard for me to jump to that senior level.
Yeah.
After leaving LinkedIn, I had that time to reflect and think, okay, what could I have maybe done differently or what went wrong? And again, talking to mentors and peers, realizing, okay, presence was a big piece of it in terms of how people perceive me. They didn't perceive me as that senior leader. And then I went to Prezi, and then a few months later, COVID happened. And we have a video presence now. LinkedIn presence is becoming even more important. And so that's how I realized, okay, presence is really this more holistic thing, not just in these big high stakes moments, but across all these little moments that we have throughout the day that we can be really intentional about to grow our careers.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. Well, first, I want to point out exactly why we started Her Workplace. So many professionals are advancing in their career and they get to that point, that mid-level point of either getting into a managerial role or trying to step into a leadership position. And it's almost like you get stuck.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So presence, you're saying, is more than like what you wear or your personality or how you show up in a room. It's more about what's the output.
Yeah. And really, intentionality is a theme throughout my whole book. And it's for the people like the women at Her Workplace who are doing great work, who are ambitious, but how can we take what you're already doing and make slight adjustments and slight tweaks to make sure that you are having the big impact and you are focusing on the right things?
Yeah, exactly. So I want to talk more about visibility. What are some like common challenges that you see with professionals in building visibility, especially for women and underrepresented professionals?
The first thing around visibility is that we have to realize that it's part of the game, right? Of work. We have to be visible. We have to become the CEO of our own careers and really take things into our own hands. Because even if you have the best manager and the best support system at work, everyone's so busy. And so, yes, of course, they want to advocate for you and make sure that your work is seen, but they're worried about their careers. They have the rest of their team. They're managing up with executives. So there's just a lot going on. And so to remember that visibility is important. However, this doesn't mean that we have to be super loud and braggy, which I think I hear from a lot of women and underrepresented groups and people of certain cultural backgrounds where perhaps being more humble is more natural. So there are ways that we can counteract that. So instead of feeling like, oh my gosh, I have to be bragging about myself all the time, here, I'm going to talk about what my team accomplished, but I'm going to frame it as learnings. So instead of, let's say I'm on the email marketing team, instead of bragging about our open rates and how we hit all these new records, I might talk about the open rates and then say, oh, blog team, this might be interesting to you because we saw really high open rates. We think the audience is interested in this topic. This might be helpful for you. You might want to create more content around that. So framing it more as a way to help your teammates can feel a little bit more natural. And there's a lot of other strategies you can use as well. For example, data in the Harvard Business Review showed that when you use more collaborative language, so we, us, our, you're seen as more of a leader, which I think, is great news for those of us who are really collaborative. People who used mostly I statements were seen as more junior. So lots of lessons like that in the book. But it is very, very important. We all have to make sure that we're advocating for ourselves.
Yeah. Again, it's all about what is the impact that you're driving? What's the output? And you're exactly right that it can feel really uncomfortable to share your wins, to talk about yourself especially in the workplace, right? So reframing it to sharing more about what those outcomes are. And 2, leading with curiosity,
Yeah.
asking questions.
Yeah. I love that first point you made, because someone in the book, Jerry Wan, who I interviewed, he says, if it happened, like it happened, it's true. Like you're not bragging. It's just facts.
It happened.
Yeah.
And the thing too is no one knows all of the things that you're accomplishing and all the things that you're doing, but you.
Yes.
So that is why it's so important to share at work.
I remember having this conversation with one of my managers at LinkedIn, and she shared this idea with me that I thought was really helpful. So we have a one-on-one document, updates, etc. And there were a bunch of things that I was doing that she didn't even realize. So she asked me every week, just write down like every little thing, like someone asks you for a favor, like someone asks you to look up some data. And so to your point, yeah, like no one realizes the extent. Yeah. So we have to make it known, right? Otherwise people are going to just make certain incorrect assumptions about us.
Yeah. So that's when you're in those in-person environments. It can almost feel like it's easier to share with people because you're around people, right? I want to talk about those that are in hybrid or remote environments. What recommendations do you have for building influence and visibility when you may be working from home every day?
The thing about presence is you want to make sure that you're being seen by the right people at the right time in the right place. And so virtually, it does take a little bit more effort, but it's perfectly doable. As an example at Prezi, I wanted to create a weekly newsletter talking about my team's learnings, our wins, what other people could learn from. And I had to figure out, where am I going to post about this thing? I want to reach the most people possible. Talked to my manager, ended up putting it on the company intranet. So that's one place.
Right.
But also virtually and hybrid, so many different channels and people are communicating everywhere. So I posted it there, but then I would also share it in the right Slack group. There was a senior leaders Slack group. I would make sure to share it with cross-functional stakeholders, tag them if it was something relevant.
Yeah.
So that's one way. It's being really intentional about the places that you're showing up. And then your virtual presence, your video presence as well can go a really long way when you are talking about your work, trying to build influence, showing that you're credible and professional. In the book, I talk about something called the T method that stands for tech, energy, and aesthetics. These are the 3 criteria to think about anytime you're on video. Again, not complicated. Small steps, easy to do, but just take some intentionality. And so when you show up well on video and you're talking about your work and you are communicating effectively, like it aligns your virtual presence with your in-person presence, and people do perceive you differently.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I want to go back to something that you said about you don't have to be extroverted or someone that is loud to build influence and increase your visibility, right? So for those people that are listening that may be more introverted, showing up in meetings and rooms may be more uncomfortable or nerve-wracking.
For sure.
What's your advice for managing anxiety or nerves when you're trying to leave a strong impression?
Totally get that. I'm definitely an introvert. Would you consider yourself an introvert?
I'm both, which is, you can be both.
Sure.
In some environments, I can be extroverted, but I'm the type of person that like I go a million miles an hour and then I have to crash and go in my cave.
I get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's me as well. That'll be me at the end of this week in New York, just meeting so many different people. So yeah, like as an introvert, what really helped me is understanding the way introverts need to refuel and recharge, and understanding that we have a lot of superpowers. So to your point, Marilyn, when we're in the meetings, speaking up and figuring out the moment and speaking on the fly, it is very stressful and nerve-wracking. And we don't have to do it all the time just because the extroverts are doing it. So what is an introvert superpower? Well, introverts are really thoughtful and they're really great at written communication.
Yeah.
So perhaps after the meeting, I'm going to connect the dots. I'm going to realize where there might be loose ends. I am going to keep everyone on track, right? Because the extroverts talk, like maybe we're going off track in the meeting. I'm going to keep everyone focused. So that's a very powerful skill set and a very valuable skill set. So there are ways like that where you can really lean into that superpower. In meetings, you can also find an extroverted buddy, find someone who's not afraid of jumping in and they can kind of give you that space. And similarly, letting the meeting facilitator know, or you as a meeting facilitator, you can model the behavior you want to see where you are creating activities and creating moments and rules of engagement and letting people know, hey, raise your virtual hand on the call if you have to say something. We're not going to just mute and unmute at will.
Right.
Use the chat. I'm actually going to revisit the chat and call things out. So it's not like you're just speaking into a void. So a lot of strategies, both as the attendee, but also if you're a facilitator, you can model that behavior.
Yeah. Yeah, you're exactly right. And I think too, you don't always have to speak up in a meeting. And even if you do want to kind of create that goal for yourself of, and this is something I used to do in corporate, is I made it a goal that every meeting I would say at least one thing. But it doesn't have to be a statement. It could be a question. And I just love the idea of leading with curiosity because it provides a place for other people to think and be creative. And it's less nerve-wracking to ask a question to someone else than to make a statement.
I love that. I do remember having this coworker. He would always ask the best questions and he would be very calm and just made everyone think. And so that's totally, that's a really great idea. And then to remember to say it as early as you can in the meeting, because the longer a meeting goes on, the nerves kick in, it becomes even more stressful. Someone takes your idea or someone takes what you're going to say. So it's a good goal within like the first few minutes, if it makes sense, to try to say what you're going to say and write it down ahead of time too, right? Have it on paper. It's okay to read it.
Right. I want to talk more about meetings because something that you say is that great leaders run meetings that are effective and people want to attend them. What makes a meeting energizing and engaging to you?
Meetings are generally so bad so that I love talking about meetings because the bar is so low. So if you can do just a little bit, above the status quo, it's going to impress everyone so much and really help you stand out. And so there's a number of things that you can do when you're leading a meeting that will make people just really impressed by you. So one is the agenda. And I know it sounds like basic information, but still so many people are not sending agendas before a meeting. And it's not just, hey, I want to talk about this one topic. It's, I want to talk about these 3 things, 5 minutes for the first thing, 3 minutes for the second thing, 10 minutes for the third thing. These are the people who are leading it, or these are the people who will need to bring some information. And then I'm going to state the goal. This meeting will be a success if fill in the blank. So now everyone's really aligned and on the same page. And then for the introverts as well, they get the agenda ahead of time. They can prepare, just feel a little bit better about that. The other tip that is really, really helpful, so I share something called the passive to active meeting framework in the book. And the first step is to warm up. Warm up the crowd. Think of yourself as sort of a workplace entertainer. We have all been on those meetings where we join, kind of silent or awkward small talk, asking about the weather, which only takes you so far, right? And so to think of, okay, what is something that I can do that's engaging, that shows people, that sets the tone for the meeting right from the start. So for a team meeting, for example, something I like to do is a question of the week, and I rotate around and ask each team member to come up with one each week. So they also get to speak, feel like they're leading a little bit. Yeah. And then maybe coming up with a team Spotify playlist, and you play a song at the start, and then you figure out like who suggested it or who added it to the playlist and what meaning does it have for you. Or maybe instead of asking people to jump into a brainstorming session, you practice something called brain writing, where you ask everyone individually, by themselves, silently, write down some ideas, get some thoughts, go around, call on people. So a lot of things you can do. Doesn't need to take long, but really gets people engaged from the start and then sets up the rest of the meeting as a success.
Yeah, that's great. It's all about the energy in the beginning of how can you create this welcoming and positive environment so that people feel included, they can bring their ideas, the meeting can be effective, and everyone gets something out of it.
Exactly. There's nothing worse than joining a meeting, it's silent, and the facilitator is starting it late. You're like, why did I show up on time in the first place? Like, it's just like that. Those two meetings that you just dread
it's
right
a waste
away.
Of time.
Yeah, exactly.
So I want to talk more about just the workplace of gathering feedback. What's your approach to giving and receiving feedback that helps build trust, that drives growth, strengthens relationships? And I want to talk more about this just because we're approaching the end of the year. People are getting year-end reviews. So I want your take on feedback.
Asking for feedback and also giving feedback, both are nerve-wracking experiences. But very important to do. So I'll start from the perspective of the person asking for feedback. So in my book, I talk about the 3 R's: request, reflect, and respond. And the request piece, that's really critical. So you're talking about annual reviews. We don't want that to be the only time that we're asking for feedback, right? Because then things are going to come as a surprise to us. And then, but it's review time, so it's too late to change anything. So ideally, you're asking for feedback continuously. Now, the thing is, when you ask for feedback, there's a good way and a wrong way to ask for it. So asking things like, what did I do well? Or what constructive feedback do you have for me? Which, by the way, is often the pre-filled question in annual reviews, which really annoys me because it's like you're not setting your team up for success. So how can you ask better questions? We want to get really specific with it. I am working on improving my public speaking skills. I'm trying to remove filler words when I speak to appear more confident. On a scale of 1 to 5, how do you think I did in the last meeting? Oh, a 3.5? Okay, what would have made it a 5?
Right.
Or you reframe the way that you ask for feedback. So not using the word feedback because that, gets people's walls up, but, oh, do you have any advice? Or Marilyn, you're so good at public speaking. Like, would love to hear what advice you have for me as I try to do X, Y, and Z. Or there are things you can do like, what can I do differently next time I present? So it's not saying that I did anything wrong, but I'm asking you, what are some new ideas for the future? Or like as a team facilitator, what can I do differently to get people more involved next time? So the way you ask is really important. And to remember when you ask, the person who is giving the feedback, it's nerve-wracking, right? Because they want to not offend you. If you're asking for vague feedback, they don't even know like where to start. So asking that right way is great. And then when you're giving feedback, making sure that you're direct, but also empathetic and not sort of beating around the bush, avoiding things like the compliment feedback sandwich, where it's like compliment, the constructive feedback, compliment, that just gets lost and can feel a little bit disingenuous.
Yeah. And 2, like you said, the person giving feedback, it's important to remember they're likely nervous to give the feedback.
Sure, yeah.
So putting yourself in their shoes of, okay, they're probably a little nerve-wracked to provide this feedback. So let me just remember that so that I can show up authentic and confident and knowing that this is going to help me grow. So I want to talk about leadership. What are some skills and habits that you think make leaders stand out?
In this day and age, I think communication has always been a really important skill, but even more important because so much is changing. There are things like layoffs. We have AI. There's so many reorgs going around. Like I speak to companies and it's just everything. It always feels like a team is changing and there's a new point of contact. So communication and being, again, really empathetic, but also direct. If you don't have the answer, don't make up an answer. Share what you know, be as transparent. I guess transparent communication is the skill. Be as transparent as you can with your communication. I think teammates, even if it's bad news, they value that.
Yeah.
Right. That's a really great leader. And then leaders who understand their team as people, I think even more critical today as well. Relationships are going to be even more important in the age of AI. So how can I make sure that I don't just know what you can do in a work setting, but I want to know how you're doing. I want to know a little bit about you. I want to know about your personal life outside of work as much as you're willing to share. So I think that's also really important and separates okay leaders from really great leaders.
Yeah. Particularly for those that are managing people.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes we can get lost in the fact that when you're managing someone or managing a team, it's no longer about you.
Mm-hmm.
It's about them.
Mm-hmm.
And coming to that realization that the way that the team is, how they perform, how they grow, that directly impacts you and your growth as a leader. I want to point that out because I've met so many and worked with so many managers and leaders, and I've seen the ones that are really great and the ones that find it challenging.
Yeah.
And it seems like it is that difference of putting other people before you.
I love that because when new managers come to me and they ask, how do I be a good manager? One of the things I always say is the fact that you even are coming up to me and care and want to do a good job for your people.
Yeah.
Because people become managers and they don't really care. And they're doing it because they just think that's the next step. So 100% agree with that.
Yeah. Managing people is challenging.
Yeah.
It's not meant for everyone. And I think that some people are just put into these positions and it's just not the right fit.
Exactly.
Yeah. For someone that is hesitant to step into the spotlight, say that they're becoming a leader or they're stepping into a managerial role and they have that like hesitation or they don't feel as confident. Do you have any tips for how they can strengthen their confidence and start being seen as that leader?
I'll go back to my experience as a new manager and being so nervous and feeling like I didn't have any idea what was going on. A lot of it, and you know, even past that into my career now, a lot of it when we don't feel confident is doing the thing anyway, even when we're scared. Because what happens when you do that is you get data that you can get through it. Usually we perform better than I think we will in our heads. And that's the confidence booster. And then next time you have that to look back at and you're like, oh, I did that one time. I'll try again. And then you just keep building and you have this whole data set of, okay, I can do this new and scary thing. And anytime I'm trying something new, and including, you know, being a manager and imposter syndrome seeps in, I remind myself it's because it's something new. And that's where you grow the most.
Yeah.
Through those scary, difficult moments. And good for you, right? That you're putting yourself in that challenging situation because a lot of people are perfectly happy to stay exactly where they are and just be comfortable. So I think, you know, pushing yourself past that point is really helpful. And then again, asking for feedback from the people around you, being vulnerable. I remember my first team meeting, I sort of said, I was like, I'm kind of nervous. Like I've never done this before.
Yeah.
So, and everyone was very supportive and nice. And I think they appreciate that vulnerability. They can help support me. And then they, in turn, in the future, will feel more okay being vulnerable with me with things around their work.
So looking back at your time at both LinkedIn and Prezi, what did those experiences teach you about being a good communicator and elevating your presence?
I'm so fortunate that both LinkedIn and Prezi are very professionally focused. So working with presentations and other business leaders and experts. And I really learned how to, especially with external partners, because I worked with a lot of external leaders, how to present myself in those situations. And so I'll give one example. In the book, I talk about a UPI, a unique and powerful introduction. And something that a lot of people do that I realized during my time there is, or at both places, is they will throw away an introduction. It'll be like, hi, I'm Lorraine. I'm on the editorial team. Or, hi, I'm Lorraine. You know, I'm on the editorial team. I've worked here for a few years now. I sit on, you know, whoever's team. And when you talk like that, it really diminishes how people perceive you. It doesn't make you feel as confident. And so working with all these different people externally, finding my voice, being able to really state what it is I do and to take up 10 extra seconds to talk about my introduction and give a little bit more information about what I do, I think that's one of the most powerful ways to make that really, strong first impression.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to someone the other day, their whole team did it as an exercise, and she ended up inviting a few executives.
That's great.
Yeah, she didn't tell her team. And so they were like a little bit nervous, right? The executives were sitting in, but the executives were like, whoa, I got goosebumps because everyone just like, they were so powerful and just really sure of themselves. And that was just so cool to hear. So, obviously I learned so much at both companies, but that's one thing that I took because not a lot of people always knew what editorial meant. And I was just speaking to people all the time outside of the company. Yeah.
So you have an incredible brand and presence on LinkedIn. And I know so many people listening are really interested in continuing to build their presence on that specific platform and also utilize it effectively. So for meeting mentors, getting connected with people, finding a job, do you have any recommendations for people who want to get more active on LinkedIn?
Yes. Okay. So many. So it's very important to be on LinkedIn, whether you're looking for a job or even if you're happy at the company that you're at, because LinkedIn has really become our virtual water cooler, our virtual landing page, and our ultimate virtual office. So we want to be seen at the office, right? Like we want people to remember who we are and to stay top of mind.
I love the virtual office.
It is. It's ultimate.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a lot of ways that you can grow your presence. So first is having that mindset. Okay, LinkedIn is really important for building my brand. And it's one of the only places where someone can form a really positive impression of you without ever needing to meet you or before they meet you. And we've all had that experience where someone messages us on LinkedIn and we're going to go to their page and we're going to make a quick snap judgment, spend a few seconds and decide, is this person, do I want to accept their connection request? Is it worth responding to this message? So having a strong LinkedIn presence helps with that. There's a number of things that you can do on LinkedIn. So for those who are perhaps looking for jobs, obviously the top half of your page is going to be very important. So your headline, your about section, the keywords you include in there are going to help you be discovered on platform and also through Google search. If you are trying to build your thought leadership, again, whether you are looking for a job or at a company, posting content on LinkedIn is going to be really, really powerful. It is going to just give people more information about you and what you know about. It is kind of nerve-wracking. I don't know. How do you feel posting on LinkedIn? Do you feel nervous about it or?
No, I love it.
You love it? Okay,
yeah,
good. Yeah.
I just have gotten in a rhythm of doing it.
Exactly.
Several days a week.
Yes.
And
so you got to get into that.
You have to get
rhythm.
past the fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So to your point, there is fear. Even when I worked at LinkedIn and I was posting, I had fear. And so which is funny because it's part of my job. So we need to get past that. One way, because I know posting can be kind of intimidating, start commenting first. So find people whose content you like. So anyone who's listening, find Marilyn's posts, find my post, add a comment. And with that comment, it's a point of presence.
Right.
So don't just say, great post, Marilyn, but you can say, great post, Marilyn. And I'd like to add point 1, point 2, point 3. Or great post, Marilyn, have you thought about this? This has been my experience at my company. So there's ways where if people land on that comment, and by the way, you can now see number of impressions on a comment. If they land on that comment, they can learn something about you and you're still going to grow your following. And you really find your confidence, you find your voice, and that translates again, whether you're doing interviews, whether you are speaking at an all hands meeting, and people internally and externally, because it's a scary thing, they see you doing it, people get impressed. They see you as more of a leader.
Yeah. Yeah. You're exactly right. It helps you build that executive presence. Well, I could be here forever, but unfortunately we have to come to a close. But before we end, I want to ask you kind of 3 rapid fire questions.
Yeah.
The first is, what is one thing that you do each day to stay grounded?
I've been trying to get into meditation more, but work in progress. But one thing I do each day is I'll stretch just for a few minutes at the end of my day. It just gives me a break, try to do it in silence. Just let your mind process the day. And also that's when the best ideas come in silence. Yeah.
Love that. What is something that you think was necessary for success, but you don't anymore?
I would say being loud and kind of just being maybe like a more brash personality. And I know it sometimes can still feel like corporate America is sort of catering to those loud voices, but there's been a shift. Data has shown that in terms of what people look for in a leader, it is things more like listening to learn, authenticity.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy about that.
That's great. Same.
Yeah.
What does building a career on your own terms mean to you?
Finding that combination of expertise and things I enjoy doing or talking about. And it's not always easy to find that. And you don't have to necessarily find that in your day to day. Like a lot of people are doing side hustles now. So just finding that pocket in your life where you can merge those two things. And perhaps one day it becomes, your full-time business. But yeah, for me, it's finding those two things. And then also building a career that caters to my life. And I'm not living to work. I'm working to live.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everyone buy Lorraine's book, Unforgettable Presence.
Thank you.
And where can people find you, follow you?
Have to say LinkedIn, of course. So connect with me on LinkedIn. You can let me know you heard me from this podcast. I'm also on Instagram now. So that's, early stages, but building that up. And then I have a bunch of free career resources at lorrainekaylee.com/career. So if you want to grab those, feel free.
Great. Well, thank you for being here with us. Really loved learning more about you and your journey and all the work that you do. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.